Good afternoon, everyone. The town of Hinton respectfully acknowledges that it is located on the First Peoples traditional lands. We recognize this traditional territory to show respect and understanding to those who walked this land since time immemorial. Today, we uphold our ongoing responsibility to work together in the spirit of the intent of the treaties with all the First Peoples and nations that call this place home. The town expresses gratitude for the opportunity to build a better community on these sacred lands for generations to come. With that, I'd like to call this meeting to order at 4:01. Council, any additions or deletions to today's agenda? Administration.
Through the mayor to members of council, we have two from administration. The first being cancellation of the committee of the whole meeting on November 8th. And we are recommending that that be placed on section 7.3.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. Council, would I ask Councillor if there's an appetite to amend the agenda with section 7.3? Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. I'd like to move to amend today's agenda per CEO Panasic's suggestion.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Council, we have an amendment on the floor. Any debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That has been amended. CEO Panasic.
Through the mayor to members of council, we do have one more, and it's not going to change the item, but we do believe that it would be better suited. I'm referring to section 9.1 when it comes to benchmark for paying union and salary employees. That was identified under a notice of motion. I did confirm with Councillor Stewart, and we do believe that this is more of a discussion item. So I'm recommending that that be added under section 8.3.
So it would be under reporting under 8.3?
That's correct.
Council, any appetite to amend with changing the notice of motion to a discussion item? Councillor LaBerge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that item 9.1 be moved from notice of motion to 8.3 as a discussion item under reporting.
Thank you, Councillor LaBerge. Council, we have another amendment on the floor. Any debate or questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. CEO Panasic, anything further from administration?
Nothing from administration.
Thank you. With that, Council, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we adopt the agenda for the regular council meeting of November the 1st, 2022 as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate or questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. That brings us to our council minute for adoption. Council, any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we accept council minutes for adoption, organizational council meeting for October 18th, 2022, regular council meeting for October 18th, 2022, and the committee of the whole meeting for October 25th, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, again, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate or questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That is also passed unanimously. That brings us to our citizens minute with council. This is an opportunity. You have 1 minute to come up front. Please say your name, share your thoughts, concerns, positive, negative, whatever it is. And if there's any follow-up, council or administration will get a hold of you. Just make your way forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Garu. I'm here to give you guys an update on the Autumn Festival that was held September 10th. I've waited this long because of the COA change. It's easier to do it when the new boss is in place. It was quite a success. The car show expected 15 to 20 cars, got 55, some of them even from Edmonton. All the food trucks did well, everything did well. I was within the budget, except for $6.03, but I think I can handle that. Okay. Which brings us to next year. If you people wish to have it done again next year, you need to put it in the budget. The budget amount we used last year was fine, no problem with it. As long as the infrastructure is the same with the stage and the barriers and all that other stuff. The only key here is I won't be doing it next year. I won't be here. So we need to look for somebody who can coordinate everything. I have everything Tupperware. It's easy to show people how to do it. We just need somebody to take it over. So which one of you members would like to do it?
Yeah.
It's not that hard. I have a meeting asked for with the new CAO to discuss how it was set up and everything, so he understands. So as soon as he contacts me back on that, he'll get filled in. Okay. Anything else you guys need to know?
No, thank you, Mr. Daru. We, on behalf of council, we appreciate all the effort that you and everyone else who played a part. I think having a festival in September was a nice change where we weren't really used to it, and it was a great thing for our community. So we look forward to discussing this through the budget process to make sure that the proper amount of money are allocated, and if not, have a good discussion on why or why not that should be. But we're quite pleased with the outcomes of this year. So thanks so much for your time.
No problem. Call me if you need any info.
Thank you, Mr. Daru. Anyone else for Minute with Council? Seeing none, that will bring us to our delegations and presentation. We have two this evening. The first one is 5.1 CityViz presentation presented by Sasha Bogdanovic. And I believe this will be done via Zoom. Mr.
Hi.
Bogdanovic.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, councillors.
Thank you.
So
The floor is yours.
thank you. Thank you. So first of all, I would like to acknowledge that I'm speaking from the traditional lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy and Tsuut'ina people. I'm speaking from Calgary. And I would like to acknowledge that I respect the tradition of the First Nations people. So this presentation will consist of three parts. One will be, I will go through the slides, which briefly introduces the company and the CityViz as a product. Then I will go through brief live demo, and the third part would be dedicated to any questions and answers that the participants of this meeting might have. So with that said, because there's a lot of ground to cover, I will share my screen. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so just a moment. Okay, so I'm Sasha Bogdanovic. I'm Chief Technical Officer of CityViz. So CityViz is the data portal for economic development provided by Ruby Industries Inc. So Ruby Industries Inc. was incorporated in 2013 in Kelowna, BC. We are an award-winning company specialized in data-related projects. First number of years, we worked mostly with clients, international clients, and some Canadian clients as well on various data-related projects throughout the whole pipeline of such projects, so data migrations, integrations, and stuff like that. And we pivoted in 2017 after working with BC Stats, which is the provincial, the statistical department of the provincial government of British Columbia, and Innovate BC, which is also a Crown agency. We won the challenge for BC housing market data visualization project. So with that, we got to, as a winner of that challenge, we got to work with BC Stats and Innovate BC on completing and deploying that project. And CityViz was inspired inspired by recognizing that we can deploy our skills and experience and expertise for the benefit of general public. And that's how the idea for CityViz was born. So CityViz is the data portal for economic development. It can be used in a variety of ways, and that primarily depends on community needs. So a number of communities throughout Canada use CityViz at the moment as their tools, as their software for economic development, to support economic development activities with data. And each of them finds the most value in different aspects of CityViz depending on their particular situation. So some examples include, for example, community profile. It can also serve as an investment attraction tool. It can support writing grant applications by providing facts which support such decision making. It can serve as a site selection tool as well, GIS and planning, and more. So what are the goals of CityViz? So primary goal of CityViz is to support community economic development with data, and it does it in multiple ways. So first of all, collecting all relevant data from various and disparate data sources into one single place. And keeping that data always up to date. So our goal is to have the same day updates as soon as the data is released in original data sources. Sometimes that's not possible, but simply because completely new data sets are published or the layout changes and stuff like that. But we tend to keep that really to the delay, to keep it to 1-2 day maximum. And also to provide insights for stakeholders with effective data visualizations, which make it easy to extract the insights. So those stakeholders can be both internal, so policymakers, the council, and so on, as well as external stakeholders like interested parties in the community, like investors, developers, entrepreneurs, even general public. So most recently, I heard the anecdote from City of Cranbrook, where their economic development officer heard that from a student in Cranbrook that they use the portal for their research and study for their thesis. So that was good to hear. So what are the sources that CityViz collects data from? They are primarily Statistics Canada, but not only. So data sets from Statistics Canada include census, but also labor force survey, business counts, annual population estimates, and many more. We also fetch data from provincial, regional, and municipal open data sources, but also from custom sources. So these custom sources can be proprietary data, which can be acquired by client organization. And the platform also facilitates upload of your own data. So for example, typically client organization use that to upload data such as building permits, business licenses, and so on. So basically it allows them to use any data that they collect in-house or by contracting external consultants. So whenever there is data possible, there is no limit in what CityViz can do with such data. One of the major advantages of CityViz is that it is extremely flexible and adaptable. So it features a customizable economic indicators dashboard. This dashboard consists of some standard indicators which come pre-built with the application based on open data sources. But this is also the point where any custom added data would show up as well. So typically, as I mentioned, communities use that to showcase building permits, business licenses, airport passengers if there is regional or international airport nearby, and so on, tourism related data and so on. Yes, so each indicator has those several distinct elements, such as the value box, the comparison of current value to the previous value, and the trend as well. And some of the charts are annotated to provide more context into that particular indicator, such as, for example, start of the pandemic, which is annotated on unemployment rate and employment insurance beneficiaries charts. Also, to add to that flexibility and adaptability, we are also able to create completely custom pages and integrations with any custom data sources. A couple of examples include, I will mention again, City of Cranbrook, which are one of our most agile users, so to speak. So they purchased Telus Insights data, which provides them the insight into trends of visits into the city and into the region. So we created that custom integration for them, and that's available to other clients as well at no extra cost. And we also integrated with Amaze software for municipal management to provide real-time insight into building permits. So the building permits are updated daily, and the data portal is updated automatically to present the data every day. One of the features that client organizations like a lot really is the possibility to create custom PDF, Word, or PowerPoint reports. So users are able to select any data which is available throughout the application, and by clicking the button, the system generates reports in PDF, Word, or PowerPoint format. And this is particularly useful. It can be used, for example, for council meetings, let's say, to support any kind of topic being discussed with underlying data. But it can also be used to, for example, support grant applications. Yeah, so obviously, if the report is created in PDF format, it is a static report. But if it is exported into PDF or PowerPoint or Word report, then it is possible to further customize that report and add. The users can add their own write-up to and analysis on top of what they are observing on the charts. And it's also important to say that CityViz is currently the only solution on the market which provides export into PowerPoint, and this is something that client organizations particularly love, because when they need to prepare a presentation, for example, for the council, typically it would take them hours just to look for data across those various data portals and to process the data and create those visualizations and presentations with this. With just a couple of clicks, they have a really good starting point, which, as I mentioned, they can customize and provide more input. Another feature that I mentioned previously as well is our goal to have the same day updates, and the most recent example of that is the most recent batch of census data, which was published on October 26th. So it was a very comprehensive data set which included topics like immigration, religions, indigenous ancestry, mobility data, and so on. So all CityViz systems were updated on the very same day. So in that manner, we are sure that whoever is using the application is always looking at the most recent data available out there. Another important thing is that CityViz is evolving constantly. So we keep working on the application, and we keep adding new features and data sets, as well as improving the existing ones. Many of those updates on the platform include the feedback that we receive from our client organizations, and depending on their needs and particular requirements. So I mentioned previously that the solution is extremely adaptable and flexible. So that ties in really well into this as well, that we are able to improve the product in such a way to add value for the client organizations and ultimately the general public. The solution is also technologically robust, so it is performant, reliable, and secure. So it's very user-friendly as well. So we guarantee almost 100% server uptime, as we can see here. So in the last 30 days, we had exactly 100% server uptime, and before that, any downtime was scheduled one where we performed the maintenance on the server. And that is done always over the weekend, so that to minimize the disruption on any users that might be using the platform during the week. And we are also using the proven technology, which allows us to really move forward pretty fast, and it allows rapid development of new features. And I think our client organizations benefited from that greatly so far, and hopefully in the future. There is also, I provided the presentation which I shared with Jen. There is also the link to the independent research which was conducted by O'Leary and Associates. That is a consulting firm from Kamloops, British Columbia. So they recommended CityViz to Economic Trust of Southern Interior BC as well, who were looking for the software provider to provide them with a data portal which would highlight the state of the economy in Southern Interior of British Columbia. So among all similar platforms which are available on the market, CityViz was selected as the recommended solution simply because of many of its features, and many of them are listed as well in the report, which is available on that link. Obviously, in the meantime, the platform, because the report is from July last year, the platform evolved a lot from then. There are also some testimonials which are provided on our website from client organizations, which include Community Futures Kootenay Boundary, as well as Central Okanagan Economic Development Commission. So basically the users share their experience and what they find most valuable when using CityViz for their economic development efforts. And some of the examples, so examples here, so we have the clients ranging from BC all the way to New Brunswick, some indigenous communities over there. So some examples include Regional District of Central Okanagan, City of Cranbrook, Kamloops, Vernon, most recently District of Lake Country, rural communities such as Village of Consort in Alberta, Okanagan Falls in BC, indigenous communities, and so on. And I mentioned Economic Trust of the Southern Interior, for whom we provided the high-level regional view, because that's what they were after. So that is another example of how CityViz was easy to adapt to satisfy the exact requirements of the client organization. So that was briefly about the company and the platform. There is more information on our website, cityviz.ca. The pricing depends typically on the size of the community looking for the solution. And for Town of Hinton, we offer full suite at $3,200 per year, and we offer a discount of 10% for 2 or more years when the contract is signed for 2 or more years. So it's the subscription-based model. So basically, there is the yearly subscription fee, which is the one which I listed. There is no setup fee, so that's free. And yearly subscription includes our unlimited technical support. So whatever help is needed around the application, we're here to help, including uploading custom data or anything really. It also includes us constantly working on the application and improving that at no extra cost. It also includes the cost of infrastructure and maintenance. Also, we take care of everything for client organizations. It is really almost hands-free, even though there is the admin area in which client organizations can upload their own data. But as I mentioned, very often we do that for them as well. And there's my contact information. So that was my slide deck. And now I will proceed with a brief tour of CityViz, so a live demo basically. I've set up a demo instance for Town of Hinton. So what we're seeing here are the actual data which pertain to Town of Hinton. So the application is highly modular as well. So the price which was quoted in the presentation was for the full suite. But in reality, each tab here in the main navigation is its own module. Also, you might opt to exclude any of them, and that would consequently reflect on the price as well. But so far, really, all the organizations found the most value in simply using the full suite. So it starts with the overview page. The overview page on the left-hand side contains some brief information about the community. So population based on census as well as annual estimates. So both data sources come from Statistics Canada. They use different methodology. So the numbers differ because annual population estimate is generally considered more accurate. For the reference, we provide both numbers. And the charts here also use the annual population estimates to show what Statistics Canada has, the data that Statistics Canada has to show how population changes in the community. So first, percentage change as well as the actual counts. Back here to the left-hand side, some other quick facts. These are pre-built, so they come built in within the application, but it is possible to disable any of them. If, for example, the community conducts municipal census and has more accurate information, then it's possible to disable those standard ones and create a custom one that can be done in the admin area as well, very easily. Yeah, and also the homepage. So this splash page is currently in the process of the redesign. So we will facilitate choosing any data set from the application to be as a featured data set, and it would allow to kind of put your best foot forward and showcase your strengths and strong points of the community to attract investment and entrepreneurs into the community. Further down here, after the population change, some basic information about the main industries by number of employees. So currently that's data from Census 2016. The Statistics Canada still has to publish labor force related data set later this month. So we will update the systems as soon as that becomes available, and some basic information about the households. Here on the right hand side, the map of the community broken down by census dissemination area level, which is basically like a neighborhood level. If you click any of the particular area, it gives more information like population of that area, number of dwellings, households, land area, and so on. Next module here is the economic indicators. It starts with the dashboard. So I mentioned the customizable economic indicators dashboard. So this is it. It comes with the pre-built some of the pre-built economic indicators. So we can add more, particularly in the housing area, like average rent, vacancy rates, and so on. And this is where any custom data which is added to the portal would show up as well. Here at the bottom, there is this scrolling ticker similar to those stock charts tickers, which shows how those economic indicators change. So if you hover over it, it stops, so you can easily focus on any indicator, and we can add more there as well. Then we basically the data is broken down typically into categories. So under economic indicators dashboard, we drill down into some of the more important topics such as population. So we have population projections, components of change, and so on. So these are this is wrong here, the caption, because it's not census division but subdivision, but yeah, and I think in fact that this is for census division 14. So components of change shows how the population will change and why it changes. So it has two elements. One is the vital statistics, so births and deaths, as well as the migration component, so immigrants, people moving between the provinces, within the province, from other countries, and so on. That was the population. And yeah, so here in the business, we have the business counts, which we obtained from Statistics Canada. So that's, we pay for that data set to Statistics Canada, but we provide it to our clients at no extra cost, because we would like to add value to our client organizations. Also, various breakdowns of business counts by NAICS codes, 2 and 4-digit NAICS codes. So this really provides insight into, provides like to showcase the strengths of the community, but also to uncover the opportunities, like which of the industries are lacking in supply. So that can be used to uncover such opportunities. All the charts are interactive in the sense that when you hover over the charts, you get more information. Each chart can be downloaded as a PNG and embedded into any collateral that whoever is using the application is creating. So that can be a presentation, that can be social media posts, that can be anything really. And some of the charts also allow drilling down. So for example, a chart like this, we can drill down into any particular area here by clicking on that area, and then by hovering, we get more information. And then we go back again by clicking the toolbar above the chart. Yes, so some more data over there, because there's limited time, so I will have to just briefly go through, not through everything, each and every chart, but highlight the most important parts. This portion here is the more in-depth analysis of labor force survey. So on the economic indicators dashboard, one of the featured data sets was the unemployment rate. And over here, we drill down into more details about that. So total labor force, how it was changing in time, starting from 2016. This chart on the right-hand side shows the number of jobs which were lost or added since start of the pandemic. So currently it shows that that it is a little bit below the number of jobs which were out there before the pandemic, but it's almost there. And another thing which is important to mention, that this data is at the economic region level, simply because the Statistics Canada has constraints in conducting the survey for the labor force. So this data is gathering the data, and in fact this is for two economic regions, for Banff, Jasper, Rocky Mountain House, as well as Peace River, I think. So that data here is aggregated, but it provides the trends and insight into how labor force was affected with most recent developments. It provides also the snapshot of current number of employees by industry, also two-digit NAICS codes, first broken down into goods and services sectors, which then break them further down into particular industries which belong to those two sectors. And then similar chart, which just goes back in time to January 2016 and shows how each of these industries was changing in time. So it can kind of show how any particular industry was changing, like struggling or doing well, and so on. So this is again by number of employees. And we keep adding. So I mentioned that we keep adding new features and data sets. So most recently, we also acquired more detailed data set from Statistics Canada, which includes also breakdown of employees by gender and by age groups. So we will include that into the application as well. That's currently work in progress. Next module here is the community profile. So this is full census coverage. So this is completely based on census, grouped into three categories: population, labor force, and housing, with each of these categories containing a number of subtopics which are listed here on the left-hand side. So it starts with the population. The data currently, it's a mix and match between census 2016 and census 2021, simply because Statistics Canada did not publish yet the full data set for census 2021. They're publishing that in batches. But it's almost there. So in November, so in this month, in fact, so they should, I think, release the final data set. So each of these topics come with the visualizations which are most appropriate for that particular data set. So this, for example, is the breakdown of population by age groups, and it also contains the comparison of most recent census data to the previous census, so 2021 versus 2016. The breakdown is by age group and by gender at birth. So 5-year age groups, and it shows, so the comparison versus the previous census shows how the population changed in those 5 years. So which age groups increased or decreased in number. And on the right-hand side, we see the broad age groups, so basically children, seniors, and working age population. Similar charts for a number of other population topics, such as income, so household income bands, low-income households, and so on. Comparison of the town of Hinton to census division, which is division number 14, as well as the province and federal level. Education, marital status, indigenous population, immigration. So most of these are, in fact, I think now all of these except education are most recent data, so census 2021. Again, interactive charts, for example, here we can see immigrant population by place of birth. So if you want to drill down into any of them, we can do that by simply clicking into any particular, for example, continent, and then it shows us in more detail, and just by clicking, we go back. Religions, visible minorities, and so on and so forth. Language, mobility. So that's the population topic of the census. Similar thing is for labor force. So labor force data set is fully 2016. It will be updated later this month. So labor force by composition by status, then employment, so participation rate, employment rate, unemployment rate, class worker, place of work, and so on. Commuting, so this chart, for example, shows the number of commuters between the communities in the region. So within Hinton, 3,910 people are commuting to work. Then between Hinton and Edson, for example, from Hinton to Edson, 160 people and nobody in the other direction, and so on. Mode of transport, time of living to work, and so on. Next topic is the housing. Again, a number of charts which are painting the picture of the housing. This data set is fully 2021, so that's all most recent data. Affordability, so it's using shelter cost to income ratio as a measure of affordability. So if the household is spending more than 30% of its income on shelter costs, such as mortgage and other related costs, then the housing is considered unaffordable. So this number shows the percentage of households which are considered unaffordable based on household income, total income, and the housing and shelter costs. Breakdown of tenure, so owners versus tenants, and then some indicators about owner and tenant households, and so on. So average, median shelter cost, and so on. So that was the community profile based on census, full census coverage. Explorer, this is the map of the community, similar to what we've seen initially on the home page, so broken down at the census dissemination area level. But here we can change the topic, so we can highlight by different indicators to get insight about any particular neighborhood. So for example, average age, median household income, and so on. Important to mention here, we can overlay additional data sets to provide location markers, and particular data set which could be used for that is, for example, business licenses data. So you can upload business licenses data. It would overlay the locations of current businesses, and by overlaying that on top of demographic indicators such as this, that allows uncovering business opportunities. And I will show you the example of, so for BC communities, the BC provincial government has a sites registry data set, which provides some existing establishments and businesses. So we use that as well. So let me just show you the example. We'll go to Regional District of Central Okanagan. So if we go to their Explorer page, so map similar to what we've seen for town of Hinton, so broken down at census dissemination area level, and here we can overlay. So for example, if let's say you're looking to open a childcare center, typically you would paint the map by average age to uncover those areas within the city which are where the younger population lives, and then, for example, overlay existing childcare centers. And the map is interactive, so you can zoom in, zoom out, and so on. By clicking any particular marker, you can even obtain more information. But yeah, so I mentioned this lets us identify areas in the community or region where the younger population lives, and where there is a lack of supply. And this tool is particularly useful for uncovering such opportunities for developing new businesses, because it allows you to see any competition which exists out there. And as I mentioned, these data sets can be improved and embellished by using internal data sources such as business licenses. That was the Explore tab. Next here is the Downloads tab. So that's the report builder. So I mentioned we have all the data sets which are available throughout the application. So for example, you can come in here and select any data sets which are available and select the format PDF, Word, or PowerPoint. So let's say PDF. Customize the report title, click download report. It takes a few seconds depending on the number of data sets which were selected, and it generates the PDF report, which we can now preview. So this includes basic analysis of the data which was selected. So there is some brief write-up, as well as relevant data visualizations. In most cases, they are practically exactly the same as the one which are available in the web application. And similar things. So if we choose the PowerPoint option, then it creates the slide for each data set, for each visualization which was selected based on the data sets. And this is really good starting point for any presentation that you might want to use this for. Yeah, and it's branded. Sorry, I have the logo of Village of Concert here, so that yeah, so it's branded, so we can add your logo and use your template. If you're using completely customized template, we can use that as well. And these write-ups are editable, so here you can add more text and so on, analysis or any insight really that you would want to extract from the information which is presented. So that's really good starting point for the presentations. So that was briefly about what is publicly available, and then there is also the admin area. There are several things which can be done in the admin. I will just briefly focus on how easy it is to create a new indicator. So you can use the template, or you can just upload the Excel file. So I will demonstrate uploading the Excel file. I will use some old data that I have for labor force survey. So it pre-selects the columns and also the date column, location column, which is not really even required, but here the indicator. So let's say we want to see, for example, let's say total labor force. So we select that as the indicator column. We give it a name, so labor force. And it creates the preview here on the fly, how it would look like on the economic indicators dashboard. So if you're happy with what it looks like, all that we need to do is just flag it as active and save. But we can further customize this and change a number of parameters here. So first of all, we're comparing just most recent month or most recent quarter. It always updates on the fly. Are we comparing to previous quarter, for example, or same quarter the year before? Are we aggregating data, so sum, mean, or median? Even change the color of the indicator. Let's pick purple one, for example. So let's say we're happy. We can further customize this, but let's leave it as is, save. So it's saved. And now if we go to economic indicators dashboard, I will open it in a new tab. It should show up here, and sure enough, here it is. So that's really what it takes to add a new data set in the application. So again, this can be done. So each client organization gets admin user for themselves, but our technical support can do this for you as well, even though it's really easy. And also in the admin area, each tab here has the YouTube video, which showcases basically how any particular functionality is used within the admin area. And there's also the possibility to contact the support from here. Clicking this button just sends an email to our customer support. So that was briefly about the application. So I'm open now for any questions that you might have around anything related to it, really.
Well, thank you.
I would like to thank you for your attention, and sorry if I went too fast. I mean, there was really a lot to say. I tried to be brief, but
No, thank you, Mr. Bogdanovic. Very thorough breakdown of the platform. What I'll do right now is open the floor up to council if there are any follow-ups to your presentation. And I have Councillor LeBerge.
So with that standard package, if it was plugged into the Town of Hinton website, then all of that functionality would be available. So if a developer was looking for those reports, they could download the PDFs or the Word documents in exactly the same way?
that's correct. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And it's also possible, I didn't mention as I was going through it, to download data in Excel format, so raw data. So let's say you're looking into, I don't know, business accounts, for example, and business and consumer incorporations and bankruptcies. So clicking this button, download data, opens the pop-up. So it asks for email address. And if an investor or a developer is looking for such data, they would enter their email address. And optionally other details like full name, organization, and so on. And what the application will do, it will send an email to their email address, which was provided here with a download link. By clicking that link, they will download the data into Excel format. But in the admin area, you would be able to run the reports and see who is downloading the data so that you can follow up, for example, and see if they need any additional information and how can you help them in attracting their business into the city.
Thank you. Council, any follow-up questions? Oh, Councillor Taylor.
Who do the updates? And if it's us, how much work is it for us to do the updates? Because that seems like a potential problem if it's a lot of work for us. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So that's a really good question. So all the data sets which are publicly available, so all that I showcased here are updated by our update procedures automatically. So no work is required by your organization whatsoever. The only point where you might need to update the data is when you add any custom data, such as building permits, for example, or business licenses. And that's done in the admin area as well, but that's really easy. But again, our technical support can do that for you. For example, you just send us an Excel file and we go in and do that for you. So there is a tab here, manage data. So this is the one that I just created previously during the presentation, labor force. So we select that, click edit data, then a grid like this shows up. So Kelowna CMA, so this was just an example Excel file. Obviously, in actual case, we would use the actual data provided by you. So just scroll to the bottom, right click, insert row below, new row appears here. So this is basically like Excel. And here you can either copy paste from internally collected Excel files or manually enter information if needed. Typically, it would be just a couple of rows, so there isn't a lot of work involved. And again, it can be done by you, but also by us. So as long as there is data, you shouldn't worry about it. So it shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, anything is possible. And if it's possible, I mentioned the case where we integrated in real time with the software provider for municipal management of building permits, business licenses, and so on. So with that, there is no interaction whatsoever from the municipal staff. Everything is done by automated procedures between our software and the software provider for management of those business licenses and building permits. So the data is updated virtually in real time, and I can show you that page. That's for City of Cranbrook. Data, choose cranbrook.ca. So here under economic indicators tabs, I don't know, it's there is this building permits page. So this is so the completely custom page which was created. So it shows building permits value, comparison between different periods, year-to-date building permits value, top categories, and so on. And then some breakdowns of total value year over year, as well as by different types of properties, so commercial, industrial, and so on. And similar thing for breakdown of number of building permits. So this is all done in real time in an automated way, so nobody has to do anything manually whatsoever.
Thank you. Council, any further questions? Seeing none, Councillor Taylor. Go
ahead. I guess my question maybe is to administration or those on council and more in the know than I am. But if we wanted to further this topic by, say, sending an administration way to bring back options and costs for displaying economic data on the Town of Hinton website, which I think is a good option, look at the various options, including this one. Would it be appropriate for me to do that with a motion now, or should I do that at a later time in a different format? Thank you.
CEO Panasic.
Mayor, through to the rest of council, that would be appropriate, I think, at this time, if that's typical process to make a motion to direct administration to gather more information, bring it back at a future meeting. When administration's okay with that.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I think this economic portal idea is important enough to do that. So my motion would be to have administration bring back options and costs for displaying economic data on the Town of Hinton website. And that would include this option, but it might look at other options as well. And then we can discuss this when we have the full range of options. That's a motion. Thank you.
So Councillor Taylor, just to make sure Miss Davy Campbell got it, your exact motion would be
I'm sorry.
just the motion.
Yeah, okay. I'll try to do that. To have administration bring back options with costs for displaying economic data on the Town of Hinton website.
Thank you. And we'll give Miss Davy Campbell a moment to bring that on the screen. Did you want to speak to that further, Councillor Taylor?
No, thank you. I think what we've learned from this presentation and what I said further is enough it speaks for itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, we now have a motion on the floor. And Councillor Taylor, if you could just make sure the wording is to your liking. Oh.
If you could just read it to me, I can't see it. I'm sorry.
So Councillor Taylor, you should be able to see it now.
Yeah, that's perfect. Can we call it the Town of Hinton and not the Town of Hinton? Thank you.
Thank you for that catch. Okay, Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate, questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question to have administration bring back options with costs for displaying economic data on the Town of Hinton website. Council, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried 6-1. Council, anything further? And seeing none with that, Mr. Bogdanovic, I'd like to thank you for your time and all the information that you brought forward to us this evening. And we look forward to further discussion. So thanks again for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to present in front of the council. It was my honor. So I hope to hear from you soon. Yeah, if you need any additional information in the meantime, please do not hesitate to reach out.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
And with that, that brings us to our second and last delegation presentation for this afternoon, a destination management administrator presented by Miss Natalie Charlton in the Hinton and District Chamber of Commerce.
Okay. Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Natalie Charlton, and I'm the Executive Director at the Hinton and District Chamber of Commerce. And with me today is Jax Drew from Hinton Local. She was the awarded the contract for the Destination Management Administrator. So our goal today is to give you an update on where we're at with the project and to look at the future. So supporting Hinton's visitor economy. We call it visitor economy as opposed to supporting tourism because we recognize that tourism is so much more than just bringing tourists into our community. It's about our oil and gas community. It's about those that come into our community for conferences, perhaps sporting venues. So it's more than just the tourists that's coming to visit in the summer. Here are some of the key deliverables that we had put as goals to accomplish with hiring the Destination Management Administrator. And I'll apologize in advance. You'll notice in our presentation that there's a lot of acronyms. It seems to be an acronym conversation, but I'll do my best to try to get through all of that.
Well, point of order. I can't see the screen. I'm sorry.
Thank you for that. Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll work on that, Councillor Taylor.
Keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Key deliverables, conference readiness with specific targets and measurables, providing 1 to 2 conferences to be booked for the 2023 year. Creation of play and stay holidays with local hoteliers and businesses, including our nonprofits. Grant writing and financial planning. Update to blog stories on Explore Hinton site to promote the visitor economy for Hinton. Work and provide support to the Explore Alberta Northern Rockies Tourism Group. Provide support to the Tourism Relief Fund. This is the strategy and marketing plan that has been applied for through the federal government. Advance a destination management organization, DMO, and a destination management fund, DMF. To start with, what Jax was working on is getting out and working with our local hoteliers. She's been conducting a fairly kind of robust survey just to find out where our hoteliers are at. And these are just some of the questions that she's been asking. Where do you feel Hinton needs the most support attracting tourists? How do you envision a DMA or destination management administrator could best support your business? What amenities do you have to support a conference? Would you support a DMF, and how do you envision the monies being spent? This is some of the responses that we're getting from our local hoteliers. I would certainly encourage people to support a destination management fund and to do my very best to get the rest of the hoteliers on board. A DMF is a great idea on paper, but as hoteliers, we need to see our return on investment first. We need strong marketing. I would support a DMF that supports the marketing of our community. Hinton is conference ready. We have a lot of great amenities that need to be showcased. A destination management administrator could help with this. We have a lot of great assets in our community, and we need a point person to work with hotels to create an experience. These are, this is just kind of the start of the conference readiness. So what Jax and her team has done is they've created a brochure that is accessible through a PDF and electronic version. We understand that our marketing dollars are going to go a lot further if we're not spending so much of it on print material and mailouts. So this brochure has been working with the local hotels to find out all of the different amenities that they have to offer that we can kind of zone in on that conference readiness. Working with 22 different hotels, just kind of getting a little mixture of everything. Not everybody has a pool, not everybody has conference facilities, that sort of thing. So far to date, these are the conferences that we're working on. You'll note that the first one is 2023, the others are 2024. We are working on more conferences for 2023. Some of the conferences that we're working on are very robust conferences, and they take more than a year to get in place. So the first one is working with the Hinton Nordic Center. They have a biathlon that is taking place in 2023. We're working quite closely with that organization to help them with discount codes for the hotel and getting blocks of rooms set aside to bring in all of those participants. We have submitted a very robust application to the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. This seemed like an easy one for us to go after for the 2024 Provincial Conference and Policy Session. This will be bringing over 200 delegates into the town to work on where policy is made at a provincial level with the Alberta Chamber. We've submitted, we're hoping to hear word back. And then I'm going to let Jax talk a little bit about the Geek Nations tours, because this is quite an interesting one. So.
Yeah, so we have a local here, Terrace Cassidy, who owns Geek Nation Tours, and he often does tours around the world, mostly in the UK. And he's decided that he's going to do a Lord of the Rings style Hobbit tour here in our community and do like an ATV tour along with that as well. So he'll be bringing hopefully up to 24 people from mostly the UK, but around the world to come and experience our community. So it's a really exciting conference for us to be having here.
Yeah, so we'll keep you up to date on the other conferences that come throughout the 2023 year, but that's what we've got to work on so far. I might add as well that we have hit the ground running, but the time span for the DMA contract was fairly there's a lot of work that's got to get done in the 5 short months. So we're really trying to get up, but this is just an update for you for today. I'm going to slip over blog post just because I wanted to display a little bit of what the stay and play packages are going to look like. So what we've done is we've tried to cater these packages so that, for instance, if you're going off to a conference and perhaps your spouse is traveling with you and maybe the spouse isn't participating in the conference, what are things that we can do to encourage them to bring those folks along with them? Or if you would like to extend your conference, maybe by 2 or 3 days past the date of the conference, what can you do in Hinton? So we want to let people know that we can create, a creative retreat. If you are perhaps a quilter or you're interested in pottery, we can create those sorts of activities. Nature retreat. We have people that come from all over for bird watching in Hinton, even just activities. We want to really create bringing people more in the 4 seasons of Hinton, not just in the summer months, and work a little bit more on shoulder travel. I'm going to go back to the blog post. I wanted to point out that these pictures are all local pictures of people from Hinton. These are the activities, what we have to offer in Hinton. And I mean, even this slide alone is very attractive to somebody that would consider coming to Hinton in the off season. When you get into the thick of it, Hinton has so much to offer. We just need to brand it and promote it more. Supporting Explore Alberta Northern Rockies. This is the tourism group referred to as ENER. So we want to work quite closely with ENER. We met with them again last week and gave them an update on the project. And they're going to be very instrumental in the success of where we go with this, because it's going to be important to have their input. Members of ENER are your not-for-profits. We've got not-for-profits like Nordic Center Disc Golf, Mountain Bike, but we've also got Business at Large, Citizen at Large, Chamber of Commerce, Town of Hinton. I'm sure there's more than that. That's just what I'm coming up with right now. So it's going to be important to have everybody's input to come up with a good vision for this. This is a slide that I'm very excited about, and this might be some new news for council to hear. Travel Alberta is working on hiring their own strategic plan to come in and give them an idea of how to create a destination marketing organization for Travel Alberta. So they've hired a contractor, and that contractor is going to be working, it's called tourism development zones. So what they're going to do is, rather than focusing just on Edmonton, Calgary, Jasper, Banff, they're taking a look at all of the different communities that they can help promote tourism and connect the dots. So they are asking members of certain communities to be involved in these committees. And I will be sitting on the development zone committee, and then Jax and I will be sitting on the steering committee. We've met with members of Travel Alberta and the strategic planner that they're going to be working with. We did take them on an extensive tour of what Hinton has to offer last week. They are looking at a community where they can invest some dollars in. And I feel really pleased to be sitting on this committee, because I feel that Hinton has a lot to offer. And I think that we can be very attractive to Travel Alberta as part of their strategic plan. So I think that this is really going to tie into all of this quite nicely. These are some of the grants that we're working on right now: the Travel Alberta Cooperative Investment Fund, the Product Development Fund, and the Alberta Foundation for the Arts Community Yeah, is that enhancement? Thank you. I was like, can't read that word. Program. Some of the things that we look at is perhaps creating an event like a food and beverage conference where we can, maybe showcase some of our great restaurants that we have here and perhaps bring in beverage, much like what Jasper does in Jasper in January. So this slide has a lot of wording on it, and I'm going to do my best to try to explain this, but this is kind of maybe a vision or a pathway. And I think once I have the opportunity to explain it, you'll see what we're trying to do here and how it should all come together. So I'm going to start with the yellow circle, which is the DMP. So the DMP is your destination management plan. Now, we did a document a while back called the ANRTA, the Alberta Northern Rockies Tourism Alliance. This council was very good in supporting that document. That was, I want to say, maybe 8 years ago that document came together. And that was, it involved Edson, Grand Cache, Highway 40 North, South. It was a very robust tourism plan. So that plan does exist, and we will be working from that plan. We always need to have a destination management plan. Now we've put in a request for grant funds through the federal government called the Tourism Relief Fund. Council has a motion to support the Tourism Relief Fund with monies from the COVID Resiliency Fund from back in the summer. That has really strengthened our application with the federal government when applying for these funds. I did follow up today with Prairies Can because we were supposed to get confirmation by the end of October. Today being November 1st, unfortunately, did not have an answer for me because I really wanted to share that good news with council today. The funds for the Tourism Relief Fund that we have applied for is to the tune of $93,000. That is to create a very robust master plan for tourism, a marketing plan, and a rebrand plan of where we want to go with tourism and the Alberta Northern Rockies. So that is to enhance the existing destination management plan. Then we have the blue circle, which is the destination management organization. You need to have your plan to start working your organization. Your organization is made up of many different people. ENER and members of ENER would be your hoteliers, your tourism operators, business at large, nonprofits, chamber, town of Hinton. This is where you create your vision and all of the things that you want to accomplish related to tourism. Then we have the green circle, which is your destination management administrator. The DMA works from the DMP to come up with a plan. When you get those action items, they get carried out by your destination management administrator. What is missing from all of this is the budget, which is your DMF. Your DMF is funds that are collected from a tourism levy, quite often collected by hoteliers, tourism operators, and in some models, retail, restaurants, those sorts of things. So if I could kind of put this into a way of explaining that the yellow circle, the DMP, would be like council's strategic plan. The blue circle would be like council's vision, what you want to carry out, all the action items. Your green circle would be your administration that's carrying out all of these tasks. And the red circle would be council's taxpayers. So you need to collect the money from something to be able to carry out all the tasks. The struggle that we've had in the past to get a DMF off the ground is hoteliers and tourism operators have had a hard time to grab onto the concept of a DMO financing it because they don't see a plan or a vision or a concept. So what we're trying to do is create some action items where we can show the relevance to our hoteliers and that they will support a DMF. As of today, we have had 5 hoteliers that are willing to write letters of support, supporting the concept that we are proposing today. It's kind of one of those things that we need to build it and they will come. Once we get a DMF off the ground, we may not start with the support of all of our hoteliers in Hinton. And some of that comes from hurdles of not all local hoteliers are owned and operated and worked in town. Some of them are owned by owners that maybe live in Vancouver and have a manager that's maybe operating the hotel here, but hasn't been empowered to make those sorts of decisions. I feel that once we start showing what we can do with a DMO, those hoteliers are going to want a piece of this. And in order for them to get a piece of it, they need to start supporting the DMF. So what our ask is to complete the work of the destination management administrator role in establishing a sustainable visitor economy in support of the tourism and hospitality industry that impacts 70% of chamber businesses, local businesses, employees, and entrepreneurs. Just listening to the presentation before this, he had noted that there was 1,430 jobs that comes from restaurants, hotel accommodations, retail stores. I mean, that's a lot of jobs in our community that are supported by tourism-related businesses. And there isn't a business out there that tourism doesn't touch. If it's retention or attraction, somehow we need to create the quality of life in Hinton that attracts people here. The return on this investment is we will continue to work on shoulder season marketing and product development, attracting events, stay and play holidays. We would like to make a market for bus tours to stop in Hinton, conferences and sport tourism. We would like to provide support for Indigenous tourism, destination development with Travel Alberta, DMO preparations with local hoteliers, and complete a DMF model. So this is the work that we've done to date. We feel very confident that this is the direction to go in, and we're asking that council would consider supporting this sort of concept and allow us to continue the work moving forward. And I welcome as many questions as you can throw at me.
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Ms. Charlton, Ms. Drew, for the presentation, and to the chamber members who are also here in attendance for your support tonight. And with that, I do have a few members in queue. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Thank you for your presentation. Informative as always. I do have a question though. You made the comment that once it's up and running, the hoteliers are going to see the advantage of participating in the DMO and are going to want a piece of it. So can you maybe explain to me a little bit on what the advantages are to the participating hoteliers that may not be realized by the ones who choose not to participate?
Yeah, absolutely. And really good question, because as we head into, building these conferences and different attractions, there's got to be something that's a benefit to those hotels. So when we create a conference and maybe we recognize that, say for instance, there's a certain hotel that is supportive of the DMF, then that's who we're going to want to promote, right? If we have a hotel that's out there that's willing to take the time to collect the tourism levy in order to support the DMO, then we have to show that support back. I mean, we can't be promoting conferences and sending them to hotels that don't support growing tourism. So, I mean, I really feel that once hotels are starting to wonder, why are you never supporting my hotel and why are you not telling people about us during the conferences? We would be happy to do so. You need to support the DMF. I mean, the funds from the DMF are collected by local people that are coming to our area. It's from the tourists. It's not coming from the hotel. So we're just asking that you would collect that levy, because if we can do this with marketing dollars, just think what we could do if we could collect a whole lot more. That answer your
If I
question?
may. So one of the main benefits then is there's marketing and promotion of the participating hoteliers through the activities of the DMO at no real cost to them. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we're going to be marketing. It's going to be attracting people to the community. So yes, I get where you're going with that. If they wouldn't have to participate and they'd still be able to benefit from that. But I think with conferences, it's going to be pushing those people into those hotels because they're who's supporting you back, right? So
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sasha. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, thank you for the presentation. Very informative. I just was curious about, we talk a lot about the hoteliers, but you also indicate the businesses at large and the benefits of restaurants that aren't attached to a hotel. Also our businesses of sorts, retail, things like that, that they also, even our local garages, for example, I was getting my tires done and somebody needed some work on their car. And so have you also polled other businesses? You've got 5 hoteliers that are on board, would do a letter of support. Have you spoken to businesses at large? And I guess my further question, is it typical to do a DMF on those types of businesses as well, or is it only levying hoteliers?
So there's different models.
Okay.
For some of you, you may have attended the session where we had different DMFs come and explain what their model is. It's to find what is the right model for Hinton. I mean, that circumstance works quite well in Jasper because they're very tourism focused and it's very concentrated tourism. I don't know 100% if that's the same model that would work for Hinton, but there is versions of a model like that could work for Hinton. If, for instance, a coffee shop, for instance, wouldn't want to necessarily collect a tourism levy on every transaction that goes through, when you're selling maybe a $2.50 coffee, but maybe there could be a model that's based on annual sales or something where you would support paying into a DMF, like maybe a flat fee. So maybe I'm just guessing at numbers, maybe your annual fee could be something similar to like a chamber membership where you would pay $250 a year. That would be going in to support the DMF. You would get a different level of support because it would be kind of like that indirect tourism support as opposed to direct tourism support where you're actually driving like a hockey team into where you're blocking off 50 rooms. It would be a little bit more of a settle, but do I have support from those businesses right now? I would say no, but I would say that there's a lot of those businesses sitting at the table that are seeing the value of something like this. And I would say they probably would not be opposed to a model like that, but I think like anything, it has to be presented and then people weigh out whether they see value in it.
So if I may follow, just in a quick, so that's where the destination management plan would be helpful in that case, obviously, to look at what kind of models would be fit for us and, and have those presentations to groups like that is what I'm hearing.
I mean, and hopefully, the grant funds will come forward for the tourism relief fund where we can work with a strategic planner and figure out what some of those models may look like. And that's where you get the fun stuff starts to happen just because it's like, this is what this could become. So
wait, they ask one more follow. Just, I guess I'm wondering, so you've applied for grants, you said 93,000 from that tourism relief fund. Is that if the $70,000 is that on top of, if you were to get that grant of that amount, you would still require or be asking for the 70,000? Okay.
Yes, and the reason for that, if I may, is two different things. The Tourism Relief Fund is to create a overarching master plan, marketing plan. So through the grant application, you can apply to create the plan, but you cannot apply for funds to carry out the plan. So the destination management administrator is to help carry out the plan. That's where we do all the action items, where the application for the DMP, for the Tourism Relief Fund, is to create the plan. So one is to create your strategic plan, but then you need somebody to carry out the work of the strategic plan.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So here's what I've written down. You have awarded the contract to Jax to be the DMA. Is that correct?
For 2022, correct.
Okay. And then I heard you say she has 5 short months left in that contract. Is that
Well,
correct?
She had 5 months to carry out the tasks of the contract because the contract goes to the end of 2022.
So we only have 2 more months left on that current contract.
She's going to be working for 1 month past that because we got a late start, but that is something that we have, but the ask is coming now so that council can prepare this for their 2023 budget.
Right. So we have November, December, and January left to your current contract. The 70,000, I'm read that as it's to continue the work that the DMA has started. So what time or what amount of time?
Then there would be an additional 12 months.
For
after
12
that.
months for
Yeah.
that 70,000. Okay. I have another question. Could you explain shoulder season? I first heard that when I was in Jasper and I had no idea what she was talking about.
Yes, that's a very, very fair question. So in communities like Hinton and Jasper, peak season is usually referred to as maybe when the summer months are here, so that's their influx of travelers. So quite often for summer months would be looked at anything after the May long weekend that would go right until the September long weekend. In this case, this year, we had a very mild fall. So we actually had a lot of travelers that even traveled right into the Thanksgiving long weekend. Anytime after Thanksgiving long weekend leading up to the May season again would be considered shoulder season. So it's just not the peak months. They're still going to get travelers. Jasper's going to get people for skiing. Hinton will get lots of people will come here to ride their fat tire bikes. They will go to the Nordic Ski Club. We'll get a lot of people that will come out just even for winter camping, those sorts of activities, and they will do that in the shoulder season. It also is times where people can get less expensive hotel rooms. There's usually discounted room rates during the shoulder season, just to encourage people to come at that time.
Thank you. May I be put back in queue, please?
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Natalie, help me out. I'm just trying to think about the potential asks coming up in the budget this year. And I apologize for not remembering the number offhand. Last year, with the withdrawal of services or the withdrawal of supports from Alberta, we entered into an agreement for some funding towards essentially the operations of the building down in Green Square. Is the intention to have a further ask in this budget year as well, dealing with that separately?
Yes, so we have put an ask forward for a total of $53,000 that was broken down into $31,000 for the peak season and then $22,000 for the shoulder season. So
And then this is separate from that $70,000 for the
Yes.
tourism initiative.
So, and just to keep in mind that that is for the operations of the Explore Hinton Visitor Center. So we hire the staff for the summer, we train the staff, we bring them in. That's where we collect all the statistical data. And then we keep the center open in the off season and then provide the visitors guide and the 2 parades. So that's part of that whole service agreement. Whereas this is to continue the work for the destination management administrator.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question that kind of dovetails a little bit with Councillor Magoon's question, and it's a 2-pointed question. I did in the past and continue to support the premise of providing seed money to get this off the ground. We allocated some money in the 2022 budget specifically for this. Can you remind us how much that was in the 2022 budget? And do you have any idea of a timeline on when this may be fully developed, off the ground and self-sustaining? As I said earlier, I'm quite happy to support seed money and to get it going because I think it's worthwhile, but permanent funding of the program, I'm not quite so sure that that's an effective use of taxpayer dollars. So I need a little bit of assurance there.
So for 2022 budget, the funds that were brought forward on this DMA position was $40,000. That was broken down by $25,000 to the contractor and $15,000 for the marketing budget. So that was broken down into the 5 months. Then the $70,000 ask would be to continue on the work for the remaining 12 months after this contract is done. And yes, the goal is eventually to get enough funds collected through the DMF that someday we could even sustain visitor services through those marketing dollars. Now, we've changed the name of the DMF and we've changed it from marketing to managing, just so that we don't back ourselves into a corner of it only being allowed for marketing, so that some of that can be for management as well. Now, I can't speak on behalf of the hoteliers and the model of the DMF, because this is going to take a while to get off the ground. I had a very long conversation with the hotelier just on Friday, and how are we going to mold that whole DMF and what is going to be the terms of reference and what will get paid for. My guess is that you take that DMO circle and come up with all of the tasks that you want to complete for that year. And in there could be operating visitor services. It could be marketing to so many tourism events. It could be bringing in wellness conferences, that sort of thing. You take that DMO budget, present it to the DMF body, and then they would approve the budget, right? Like, not everything is going to get approved. And I think depending on how many hotels we have on board to start with and what the size of that fund looks like in the beginning will depend on how quick we can get rid of all of the seed money and not ask for any sort of subsidizing on something like this. If we get 5 hotels on board and maybe in that first year we collect $100,000, but we want to really go hard on the marketing right off the bat, it may not have enough funds in the budget to maybe offset the visitor services center yet. But once we build that fund up, you know, there's a chance for this fund to get to $350,000 a year. And then we can do a lot of great things with that. I would hope that visitor services would be of value to everybody in this community, because that's where we can really ambassador for our community.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. I had a follow-up on that one. So ballpark, what I'm sensing, because there's 5 hoteliers who are willing to sign a letter of support, I would assume then that they're willing to potentially be part of a DMF fairly soon. So are we talking in the next 12 months, 18 months that you anticipate, without obviously knowing 100%, but should there be a time of that you ballpark of them signing on to a DMF?
Yeah, and again, this would just be a ballpark.
Right.
You know, everybody is looking for tangible things to see happen, to be able to have that confidence to buy into this. I would say 18 months is not an unreasonable timeline to look at something like this. I mean, we've been working on DMO and DMFs for a really, really long time. And I think, frankly, it's been hard to drive it because you needed somebody to drive it. And, you know, the chamber sees value in tourism and pushing this forward. And I feel that we are the right organization that has the tools and the relationships with all the groups that surround us to be able to push this forward. The other thing is nobody has had the support or the buy-in to try to create the tangible items to then turn around and ask for the business from the hoteliers and the tourism operators to be able to collect that fund, because none of them have ever felt that they've had anything to pay it into without having a plan. So I don't have a really concrete answer for you. You know, this is something where we're asking council to invest a little further. Don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how this is going to unfold, but I'll tell you that this is the closest we've ever been to getting some buy-in on this. So.
Thank you. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my question is, if you're given the $70,000, are you prepared without an ask from council to come in quarterly, every 2 months, and give some accountability for where the money has been spent?
If you can tolerate me that much, it would be my pleasure.
Well, you know, truly, I'm really serious about this.
Yep.
To give out that much money, and it is a lot of money for a lot of work that could be very beneficial to our town, we need to be kept in the loop. We truly do. So you're saying yes to that?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, any further questions? Councillor Haas?
Not a question for the delegation, but for administration moving forward. Is this going to be included in our discussions of the 2023 budget, or is this something that needs to be a motion of council to include it?
Through the mayor to members of council, I'm not 100% sure if this ask has been included in the budget. But just to cover all our bases, you know, I think that a motion would be helpful, and I think it could be just as simple. Council directs administration to create a report for consideration of $70,000 for a destination management administrator in the 2023 budget. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that because, yeah, I knew that you come as a delegation for the civic agencies, but this was a new ask. So based on that, you know, and from everything that I've heard this evening, you know, and the fact that this investment could lead to down the road, cross the fingers, I realize it can't have no crystal ball, but potentially, you know, not needing to then fund that visitor center, and that this destination fund could do that, you know, that could be, you know, valuable to our community as well. So I'd like to put forward the motion that CEO Panasic mentioned there, Jen. Let me speak to it. You know, as a council, you know, our strategic plan, we're all about collaborating, working together to build a better Hinton, to invite, you know, tourism, but also to, you know, bolster our economy that way. So I think, you know, we talked about the DMF for quite some time, DMO, as Natalie has stated, this is the closest we've ever been to it. We've heard seen and heard from other communities that have it that benefit it greatly. I'm confident that other hoteliers will see that as well with this work. So I think this is a good investment. I mean, it all boils down to our discussions in budget, but I'd like to at least be part of that conversation. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor, and with that, I have Councillor Sasha.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be supporting the proposed motion. As I said previously and in the past, I think this is could bring some great benefit to our community and promotion of the community and getting the hotel rooms full in the shoulder season. I do have a question for administration, though, if I may. With the wording of this motion, is this going to come on its own as a standalone item to a committee of the whole or a regular meeting of council, or is this going to come in part of budget deliberations?
Through the mayor to members of council, that'll be up to council's discretion. I do believe that this would be appropriate to go forward to the budget deliberations because we do have a section that is specified for, I believe the term is civic agencies. And so this could be considered as a part of the asks from the civic agents.
I could follow up, Mr. Mayor. My preference would be that it does indeed coming during budget deliberations, so it can be considered with everything else, all the other requests during budget deliberations. So I guess the further question then, does that require an amendment to the motion, or is that understood by administration? What would that require?
Through the mayor to members of council, it is understood by administration, but if we would like to consider a friendly amendment to specify that that's when it would come forward, I think that would be appropriate as well.
I would like to request that friendly amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sasha. Councillor Hawes, any issue with that?
Absolutely no issue. I accept that. Clarity is important. So no.
If the wording is to your liking.
Sorry, did that change? No, it didn't change. So we have to whoop. Perfect. Thank you. Yes, I will. That's.
Thank you, administration. Councillor Hawes, Councillor Stashik. I have Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very willing to support the motion on the table. I think the thing for me, though, is the best place to have this conversation is during that budget deliberation so that we can have it a little bit more holistically. Again, as Councillor Sasha put it, having, all the requests at the same time gives us a better picture to consider all those considerations. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support this motion for a report coming back to council. My big thing is we get the report, then we have additional information to take to the community so they know what's going on and we can make better decisions. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I support it because I'm not in favor of, I'm in favor of the hotel industry having to pay a little bit of money on a matching dollar basis. That if I vote for this and this goes forward to the budget discussion, that additional discussion could happen then. Is that correct?
Is that a question for our CAO?
Yes, please.
Through the mayor to Councillor Stewart, yes, we can have that discussion at the budget deliberations.
You're muted, Councillor Taylor.
That's good. I'll vote for it now, but I do think that if this is such a good idea, the hotel industry would want to put dollars in at least on a matching dollar basis. But I'll vote for it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I'll be in support of this. I'd like to thank not only the chamber and all of you that are here today, but there are many other people who have persevered. And that's what I wanted to thank, that this has been talked about and It's sort of been defeated 3, 4, 5 times, and this is the closest by far. I support this regardless of any matching dollars or not, because I do believe that it will take a gesture like this to get the DMF. And if there is a day that we've talked about this for 20 years, that there is a DMF, and if there's not, then at least we can say that we've done absolutely everything in our power to get them to be on board. And this is the effort that I want to thank all of you here today and those who are not here that played a role in continuing this. So I strongly support this, and I look forward to some positive results in the upcoming years. Councillor Race.
Of a concern. Should this, I want to see a report come back. I want more information, but if it comes back to budget deliberations, I would hate to see a motion made on this report prior to us getting it to the community. So is my fear valid or?
So your question for administration?
Sure.
Through the mayor to Councillor Race. I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
Councillor Race.
Thank you, sir. So my question is, if the report is coming to us during a budget deliberation and someone from council makes a motion on that report at that meeting, I would not have had time to get that report, the substance of it, to the community. Is that a fear? Is that something that could actually happen?
Through the mayor to members of council, because we'll be discussing these items in November for the 2023 season, I believe that we'll have adequate time to get the messaging out, or the appropriate messaging out to the community prior to this being implemented. Of course, if the decision is made by council at that meeting, then the decision will have been made, and the messaging will be to inform the community of what is going on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and I just want to speak to anybody who may be watching or following up at a later date who's curious. This motion, if it goes forward, doesn't necessarily create immediate support for this. It simply allows this to come forward naturally through the budget process. I'll be very honest, I have concerns about the budget, and it wouldn't be appropriate right here now to say, yeah, I think we should just earmark $70,000 without understanding the implications of the overall budget. So again, if anybody hasn't caught that, please be aware that that is what we're asking to do, is to bring that through the budget process so it gets the time and respect that it deserves in coming forward from the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Yeah, I mean, we haven't, to Councillor Race's concerns, I mean, I don't want to see this. I think this is a report in itself is where are we going with this? I don't see we would get anything more from the, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically you've come to us and said, this is where we've come to, we need to continue on this road. This would be the report we would get. Now it's up to council to whether or not what the budget will look like. So I'm comfortable, having those conversations in the budget process. I guess the question is and I hate to put the group on the spot here, but if $70,000 is the ask, what is we're not negotiating, but is there any where we could still keep going with this? If $70,000 wasn't the amount, is there an amount that could keep this going to help a council in that conversation when the time does come to how much?
Yeah, and I think in what we thought it would take to continue on with this work. Not going to lie, our original ask was going to be higher,
okay,
but we felt that with some of the grant funding coming available, that we would be able to subsidize some of that. So, could we take less? Would we be willing to take less? You just won't get as much, right? So it's just what we've factored into what it would take to accomplish all of that. So
actually, if I may, I appreciate that, knowing that there was more we would ask for, but this is, I think, helps myself as a counselor going into that conversation. So I appreciate that very much. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, anything further before I call this to question? Seeing none, call to question that council direct administration to create a report for consideration of $70,000 for a destination management administrator at the 2023 budget deliberations. Council, all those in favor? And opposed, seeing none, that's carried unanimously. Council, anything further before I say good evening to the chamber members? See, Councillor Haas?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just a real quick question to administration. If council during those budget deliberations, we can still in the conversation, if we need more clarity on some of the ask and some of the details, we can reach out to the chamber, I'm assuming afterwards to get that information.
Through the mayor to council. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, Ms. Drew, Ms. Charlton, chamber members, everyone watching, thank you so much for bringing this to us. And we look forward to having this part of our budget. And again, thank you for all the efforts that were put into this.
Yeah,
Enjoy
thank
your
you.
evening.
Thank you.
Thanks so
for the
much.
Opportunity.
Thanks a lot.
And we will take a 6 to be followed during the public hearing. Presentation should be brief and to the point. The order of the presentation shall be entry of written submissions, those supporting the bylaw, those opposing the bylaw, and any other persons deemed to be affected by the bylaw. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. Then there will be no debating the bylaw. However, questions to the councillors or other parties will be accepted through the chair. And with that, I hereby declare the public hearing relating to this bylaw open. Administration.
Purpose. Oh, sorry. The purpose of the proposed bylaw 1175 is to permanently close the following described road. Plan 2215 KS, block 18. All those portions of the lane and corner cutoffs line within plan 5284 KS, block 18, and all those portions of Grove Avenue lane and corner cutoffs lying within the plan, accepting thereout all mines and minerals. The bylaw is attached as attachment 1. First reading was given to the bylaw 1175 on October 4th, 2022. Notice of this public hearing was advertised consecutively in the Hinton Voice newspaper on October 13th and 20th, 2022, as well as advertised on the Town of Hinton website, Civic Send, and Facebook. No written submissions have been received prior to the public hearing.
Thank you. Are there any late written submissions related to bylaw 1175? Administration.
There are none.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of bylaw 1175? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to bylaw 1175? Is there anyone present who is deemed to be affected by bylaw 1175 and wishes to speak? Do councillors have any further questions? Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To administration, how do we ensure that citizens affected by the bylaw are notified? Other than Facebook, Town of Hinton website, what other steps are taken? Thank you.
Administration.
Through the mayor to members of council, I will refer that to Mindy.
Good evening through the chair to the members of council. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
So procedures through the Municipal Government Act, we mail notices to adjacent landowners, and as Councillor Race referred to, it is on Facebook and also in the Hinton Voice for 2 consecutive issues. Does that answer your question?
I don't know if anyone else is having trouble hearing that. It was kind of broken up.
Ms. Petka?
I'm sorry, hopefully you can hear me now. So we do mail to the adjacent landowners around the affected area where the bylaw, in this case, where the bylaw is for the road closure. We also notify in the paper, as you referred to, and also on Facebook and our website. So those would be the avenues that we use as per the Municipal Government Act.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Again, any councillors have any further questions? Do councillors require further information? If not, I hereby declare that the public hearing related to bylaw 1175 is closed and will accept a motion to adjourn. Councillor LaBerge.
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Councillor LaBerge. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? And that is passed unanimously. That will bring us to our second public hearing for this evening. One moment here. (6.2) Land Use Bylaw 1188-18. The following public hearing is held pursuant to Section 692 of the Municipal Government Act, being Charter M26 RSA 2000 and amendments thereto. The following rules of conduct will be followed during the public hearing. Presentation should be brief and to the point. The order of the presentation shall be entry of written submissions, those supporting the bylaw, those opposing the bylaw, and any other person deemed to be affected by the bylaw. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. There will be no debate in the bylaw. However, questions to the councillors or other parties will be accepted through the chair. And with that, I hereby declare the public hearing relating to the bylaw open. And with that, administration.
The purpose of the proposed bylaw number 1088-18 is to amend the land use district map lot 1, block 18, plan 5284, 113 Rowan Street, from S Park to Parks and Recreation to C Highway Commercial District, as shown on attachment 1. The first reading was given to bylaw 1088-18 on October 4th, 2022. Notice of this public hearing was advertised consecutively in the Hinton Voice newspaper on October 13th and 20th, 2022, as well as advertised on the Town of Hinton website, Civic Send, and Facebook.
Are there any late written submissions related to bylaw number 1088-18?
There were none.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of bylaw 1088-18? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to bylaw 1088-18? Just please state your name.
Walter Woodley. Yeah, my is more of an enhancement, I guess. As written, I see commercial developments that have the potential to impact residential areas, and this one is what I'm thinking proactively is that I believe that there should be a caveat on the title that should the town of Hinton rezone the adjacent parcels of land to residential, that the commercial entity is responsible for a privacy fence, to build and maintain a privacy fence. Does a couple of things. It protects a future residential coming in, because I don't know how it does it now. The residential property, if they wanted to develop that adjacent area, have to build the fence and maintain it against the commercial. I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's proactive to do that. It does two things. Anybody that wants to come in and develop that to a residential area, and see a number of lots listed there when you look at the diagram, that they won't be as bothered by the commercial entity beside them, because they're responsible to barrier themselves from that residential place. And I think it's proactive to put into those so that the commercial entity is aware that that's their responsibility should this happen.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I have a housekeeping item for administration.
Regarding this item,
Well, the posting of this item. The those postings for these meetings in that newspaper are very hard to read, even if you blow them up. The other worded items are great, but these are very difficult. I went on one previous one, I went to get some more information, so I came down here and talked to the girls at the development desk there, and I said they're hard to read, and they kind of agreed, but I don't know what that transition is between administration and the newspaper, why those particular ones, when you blow them up, you can't read the little words on the diagrams, you can't even the written part, when you look at the website, it's hard to read it. So it's just a housekeeping item.
I appreciate that. So the digital content is blurry a bit.
Yes, relative to the other stuff that's in the paper.
Thank you for that, Mr.
Okay.
Woodley. Is there anyone else present who wishes to speak in opposition to the bylaw 1088-18? Is there anyone present who is deemed to be affected by the bylaw 1088-18 and wishes to speak? Do the councillors have any further questions? Councillor Haas.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask it. I guess to the concern that was raised here, currently right now, as I understand it, is the adjacent property is parks, not residential, correct? So if I may, is that correct?
Administration?
Through the mayor, yes, that is correct.
So if and when there was an appetite to change it and rezone it to residential, then that would be the opportunity to then to address if there's any concerns at this time, because at this time to request, it would have to go through a decision of council to change that to residential, if that's the case, correct?
Administration?
Through the mayor, yes, that would be correct.
Okay. And if I may, my understanding that in previous presentations, this actually, there was a consideration for a park to be there. So there's been no any at all consideration for this to be residential. Is that fair? Say?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Creek Development was originally the proposed park for that area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Are there any other councillors that have any further questions? Do the councillors require further information? Seeing none, if not, I hereby declare the public hearing relating to bylaw 1088-18 is closed and will accept the motion to adjourn. Councillor Haas.
I will make that motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate, questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. That'll bring us now to our action items for this evening. And the first one is land use bylaw amendment 1088-18. CEO Panasiuk.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. The first reading for land use bylaw 1088 was passed at the regular meeting October 4th. And we had just concluded the public hearing on this matter. The town of Hinton has entered into a purchase and sales agreement with the landowner of 101 Rowan Street for the purchase of the surrounding lane roadway and the parcel at 113 Rowan Street adjacent to the lot. Once the subdivision is finalized, these lands will be consolidated into one larger lot. With that, Mayor, members of council, if there's any other questions in relation to this item, we'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, CEO Panasiuk. Council, any questions? What would we like to do with this item? Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council give land use bylaw 1088-18 second reading, please.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, we have a motion on the floor for second reading. Any debate or questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. I'd like to move that council give the land use bylaw number 1088-18 third reading.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Council, we have a motion for third reading. And I'll be speaking in favor of this. I know we had one individual who came forward. I think I share the same sentiment as Councillor Hawes. If I or any council would deem it in the interest of rezoning this to residential, then I would look at the developers of that development to be accountable, to create some sort of barrier for the development that they would want to. So right now, I think it's zoned appropriately and there's no concerns, but in the future, that would be something any council would then have to say, okay, if we want to change that to residential, then we would have to say, okay, what are the things that we have to put in place in order to create that buffer between commercial and residential, which I don't foresee, but I guess you never know as time goes forward. But that's my train of thought, and I wanted to share that. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do support this motion, but prior to a vote, I have a question. I can remember there being talk about utilities or some underground infrastructure underneath that tented compound. So, where they, cannot build there, the town needs access to those utilities. Can someone speak to that?
Administration.
Thank you, Councillor Race. That is correct. We're going to be creating utility right-of-way agreements, and for the purpose of the shallow utilities, as well as our storm line and as well as power. So those will be, worked into the subdivision, as well as when they get registered at land titles. So we will have access to the town of Hinton's stormwater and manhole. Yes.
So that does not need to be included into this bylaw.
No, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, any further debate or questions before I call for third reading? Seeing none, a call to question that council give the land use bylaw 1088-18 third reading. Council, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Taylor, you seem frozen. In favor, Councillor Taylor, or opposed?
Sorry, that was in favor.
Thank you for the clarification. Council, anything further for 7.1 this evening? Seeing none, thank you, administration and council. That brings us to 7.2, which is the board and committees appointments, administration.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. We are looking for a board member appointment for our regional assessment review board. A little bit of background on this particular item. We did have an intermunicipal agreement that had both a regional subdivision development appeal board as well as a regional assessment review board. That has since been disbanded for a multitude of different reasons. We have, however, created a new agreement through the West Yellowhead Regional Assessment Review Board, or our RAB bylaw. So we are looking for one member today. I will just share a little bit with council further to that. We're only looking for one member. We are looking to appoint up to 3 members, but we do have an ARB appeal coming forward within 2 weeks. This member is trained. She is on the board currently. So we are looking for council to consider appointing her now. We will be going forward and advertising for the 2 vacant positions on this board as well. And that'll come forward at a future meeting.
Council. Administration, if there's no questions and we would like to go to an appointment, how would you like to proceed for the Regional Assessment Review Board?
I'm sorry, Mayor, can you repeat that?
If there's no questions from council, would we go to balloting at this moment?
Yes, that is correct. I'm just looking to Jen. We do only have one appointment. Is it okay if we made simply a motion to appoint that one member? Through the mayor to members of council. I don't know if we need to go to a ballot system just because there is only one person on that docket. We can provide a motion, a recommended motion to council for approval if that's how you would like to proceed.
I have a few councilors in queue. Councilor Hawes.
Yeah, based on that recommendation, I'm willing to make the motion that the council appoint Lee Beamish to the Regional Assessment Review Board for a 1-year term. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any deliberation questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council appoint Lee Beamish to the Regional Assessment Review Board for a 1-year term. Council, all those in favor? Councilor Taylor was in favor. Councilor Taylor in favor? Correct. Thank you. Council, anything further for the Regional Assessment Review Board appointment? Seeing none, administration for 7.2.2 Hinton Youth Advisory Council.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. We do have a representative here from FCSS, so please fill in because I'm not all that familiar with this particular board. But we are looking for council to appoint we are seeking 8 students for the Hinton Youth Advisory Council. Typically this would be part of the organizational meeting. This is coming a little bit late. We do have 6 applications submitted. I have been informed that has been typical, that we have not always appointed the 8. So administration is not too concerned, but we are looking for council to consider appointment of these 6 individuals to the Hinton Youth Advisory Council.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. Council, is there appetite to go in closed session to discuss the applicants, or is there interest in putting forward the balloting at this moment? What would we like to do, Councilor Magoon?
I don't want to put the motion forward in case there is a desire by council to go in closed session, but I'm willing to provide that, or a fellow can.
Councilor Stashik.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. So typically when we're considering committee appointments, we do go into closed session to discuss the candidates before voting. And I would prefer that we stick to that past practice in this case as well. So I'd like to move that council go into closed session.
Thank you, Councilor Stashik. Council, we have a motion to go to closed session. Any debate, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Oh, favorite. Perfect. Okay, are we staying in? Those are the results. Thank you, administration. Council, what would we like to do with this? Councilor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council appoint student representatives Sterling Mossel, Brett Cornier, Hayden Amonrood, Jada Orr, Leah Cornier, Cadence Rogiani, and Margaret Schultz from the Northern Rockies Museum of Culture and Heritage, representative to the Hinton Youth Advisory Council for a 1-year term to the 2023 organizational council meeting.
Thank you, Counselor Magoon. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate, questions? Counselor Stashik.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Not sure how to do it, but I think it's important that there's some delineation between the fact that the first six names are the student appointees to the Hinton Youth Advisory Council, and that the sixth name, Margaret Schultz, is the Northern Rockies Museum of Culture and Heritage representative on the Hinton Youth Advisory Council.
Thank you, Counselor Stashik. Administration, I see that Ms. Davy Campbell is adding some language, and then I'll revert back to the mover of the motion. If I can follow up, for me, that is a perfectly fine change that brings some additional clarity to the motion. I'm not the mover, though. Counselor Magoon, would you be okay with this language?
Let me just see, to the Student Advisory Council and Margaret Schultz from the Northern Rockies Museum of Culture and Heritage. I would say just get rid of representative, if I may, Mr. Mayor, to the Hinton Youth Advisory Council we don't need representative. And provided, of course, administration thinks that works.
Through the mayor, administration's okay with that motion.
Counselor Magoon, you're good?
I'm good, provided council is.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, council, we have a motion on the floor. Counselor Stashik. Apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I don't want to keep belaboring it, but it shouldn't be Student Advisory Council after the names. It should be Hinton Youth Advisory Council. Just for some consistency
Yes.
through the naming of it, make sure we're using the same naming throughout the motion. Again, back to Councilor Magoon as a friendly amendment.
Thank you, Counselor Magoon and Counselor Stashik for that. Okay, council, we have a motion that's been updated. Any further debate questions before I call this to question? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? And that's passed unanimously. Council, anything further for 7.22? Counselor Stashik?
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Seeing how there's room for 8 youth on the committee, I do want to give the opportunity to fill up those 2 additional vacant spaces. So I would like to move that council direct administration. It's option 2, Jen, if you want to copy and paste it. The council direct administration to continue to advertise for remaining open positions on boards and committees and to bring the applications back to council for decision at a future council meeting prior to January 30th, 2021. Sorry, I do want to make one change to that. For remaining open positions on the Hinton Youth Advisory Council and to bring the applications back.
CEO Panasic.
Thank you. Through the mayor to members of council, I believe just one other change would be appropriate to January 30th, 2023.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you for that. I may, Mr. Mayor. So the other change was to remove boards and committees and replace it with Hinton Youth Advisory Council. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate, questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? And that's passed unanimously. Council, anything further for 7.22? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our 7.3, which is the potential cancellation of the November 8th meeting. CEO Panasic.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. We are recommending that we cancel the November 8th Committee of the Whole meeting. There was only a few items that were listed on that particular meeting. One has been moved up to today. Others have been moved to the budget delegation as a more appropriate format for those items. And the delegation that we were hoping we could get into council has fallen through. So we are left with a pretty empty agenda. So we are, and with all of the additional meetings that we're going to have in the next month or two, we're recommending that we cancel the November 8th meeting. And that can simply be done by a majority member vote at this council meeting.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. I have Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council cancels the committee of the whole meeting scheduled for November the 8th, 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate or questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Anything further for 7.3, Council? Being none, that'll bring us to 8.1, council reports. And I will begin to my far left with Councillor Taylor. No, you're muted again. Sorry, but I assume you have nothing to report.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Race.
And meeting, BSN have not been held for quite some time. The guest speaker and super motivator was Amanda Wagner. It was quite a personal session. It was really good. And she'll be coming back to our community in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor LaBerge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I did last week attend the Community Futures Board meeting, and it's just there's lots of initiatives underway, and one of the big ones is the triage business expansion and recovery plan coming this way. Business has been really impacted through COVID. And this is going to be our attempt to help to rectify some of that. I also sit on the investment review committee for Community Futures, and I'm really impressed with some of the businesses that we are seeing and some of the great ideas being generated in this area. So hats off to business as always. Thursday coming up, I intend to attend the No Stone Left Alone ceremony on Thursday. For anybody who hasn't been there, it's short. It won't take all morning. And it's an initiative sort of started through the Gerard Redmond School. And they've identified various citizens in the graveyard that have, I guess it's a cemetery now, that have been involved with the military. And it's a really touching ceremony. If you could make it, I think it's at 11 o'clock on Thursday. And then I guess most importantly, Oilers beat the Flames on Saturday.
Hey, thank you for that thorough report. Councillor LaBerge, good win. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. So yeah, I had a couple meetings this past week. Along with Councillor LaBerge, I was also at Community Futures West Yellowhead last week. In addition to what Councillor LaBerge reported, I think for the first time ever, Community Futures is going to all their member municipalities with a small financial ask through their budgeting process this year. Community Futures has kind of come up against the realization that if they're going to continue to offer all of the programs and things that they currently offer, that they may need a little bit of help. So we're likely going to see a municipal funding request coming forward through the 2023 budget process from Community Futures this year. The other thing is through the general manager's update, our general manager, Nancy, had noted that through the Chatham fire in Jasper and all the effects that it had on businesses in Jasper, there's very little support for those businesses so that they could potentially be able to make it through that and come out the other side in a reasonably good shape. There's plenty of support for residents, but not the businesses. So she's taken that learning and she is on the very first steps of potentially creating a disaster response plan for business that maybe at some point put into practice throughout Alberta through Community Futures. So that's pretty interesting thing. Again, very, very early steps. The other thing that came out of that meeting that might be of interest to council, although the person isn't immediately local, she is from our region and she is from our Community Futures region. Kaylee Lees, the owner operator of Kaylee's Little Lemon Makes, is the proud winner of the second runner-up for Lemonade Day National Entrepreneur of the Year in Houston, Texas. So that means that she was named one of the top stands throughout both Canada and the United States for Lemonade Day in 2022. So congratulations to Kaylee. The other meeting I attended last week was the Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee. A couple things to come out of that meeting of interest to council. There is going to be either late this year, early next year, some recommendations coming back for council approval or council consideration regarding some changes to the Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee terms of reference. And the other thing that they discussed is coming up with some operational maintenance plan recommendations for the 2023 budget. So that'll also be coming as recommendations to council when council's doing budget deliberations regarding the operational maintenance plan for the Beaver Boardwalk. And that's it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Have Councillor Bagoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this past week, myself, Councillor Race and the mayor, we attended the policing committee meeting, which was great. It was the first policing committee meeting where we got to welcome both our new CAO and our new Staff Sergeant Fregameni. One of the, I would say probably the presentation and information of note came from victim services. And essentially what we were informed of is that victim services, by way of a process with the province, has been informed that there are very likely going to be a large number of transitions coming down around the way they're organized. And the way they feel, based on the information they've received, is that they're very much facing a shift towards a more regional delivery model in terms of how their organization is run. And I think it's fair to say that there's a high level of concern in terms of what that's going to look like and how that's going to affect victim services in our communities and across the province. One of the concerns I have from my experience on the policing committee is that I haven't had a chance to engage with any public feedback on this. I don't know if any of my fellow councillors have or not, if they've run into any sort of public feedback from the provincial level. So if you have, that'd be great to have a chat about that. So yeah, we'll just sort of cut it short there. It's something that we could go into a great deal more detail, but I think that's appropriate for reports. In terms of Staff Sergeant Fregameni's report and also from our fire chief, we talked about a number of possibilities for joint operations going into both the holiday season and through the winter months. And also some changes that the staff sergeant is looking at making to the General Investigative Services unit here at the detachment. Really, that's going to give her a little bit more flexibility with how that unit operates. And again, I think it's appropriate to sort of just leave it there without dwelling too much down into the details. So that about wraps things up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGinn. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one committee report, attended our library board organizational meeting on the 26th of October, and Hank Schmidt is again our chair. This will be, he announced his last year as our chair. He's going to be pursuing education in the library field. So and Sue Armstrong has taken on the vice chair position for this year. So if I may, to comment on Councillor Magoon's with victim services, that was actually one of the resolutions during our AM conference to try and advocate to halt that process, because it was felt that there was not a lot of public consultation. There was not a lot of consultation with the victim services units of many communities. And the same concern is going regional. We have a hard enough time getting advocates in some communities, and it may benefit some of the small communities that don't have a unit, but then it takes away from advocates and possible increases to travel and other. So there was some major concerns in that room, and it was voted quite highly to advocate for the AM to advocate to the provincial government to relook at that. Unfortunately, though, it's an advocacy, right? So it's but there was definitely and from my perspective, I don't know what the victim services, but there was, from my concern, very little consultation done in our community, but apparently some did, some didn't. So that was the concern. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Yeah, I'd like to thank Councillor Magoon for his update regarding that. The only thing to add is that we should have an update after our next meeting, as our staff sergeant will be talking to the president of Victim Services, Brian Turpin, because if there's an advocacy piece that Victim Services throughout Alberta wants to bring forward, then there might be a political component to it in order for us to bring more attention. But obviously we would need the guidance, and at least from a statement approach of where Victim Services would want some changes. So you may hear more of this to come. So we'll definitely have more after our next meeting in a few months. And nothing else to add for myself. And with that, CEO Panasic. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
My apologies. One thing that I forgot during my reporting that's very important. I want to make sure that I do get it. The other thing that came out of our Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee meeting was that the Whiskey Jack Club organized a thistle pull. So thistles are an invasive plant that you may or may not have noticed is extremely widespread in the community, way worse than it has been. So the Whiskey Jack Club scheduled a thistle pull on October 8th, 2022. There were only a few people that came out to participate in it because it was just kept to the Whiskey Jack Club for invitations. However, considering there was only 4 or 5 people that came, they filled 21 big black garbage bags of pulled thistle plants. The purpose of doing a thistle pull is to prevent the seed heads from going to seed and dispersing, causing regrowth of thistles in the spring. The Whiskey Jack Club's planning to make this an ongoing annual event, and they've assured the committee that next year they're going to plan it earlier in the season for probably late August or September, and they're going to get the information to communications so communications can help spread the word to get volunteers to come out and help with the thistle pull and maybe make even bigger impact next year. So I just wanted to make sure I got that in there and congratulated that group on the work that they did to try and help the thistle around the Beaver Boardwalk. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. And with that, CEO Panasic.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I do have an update on a few items. First, the Bhutan lands, 2 units have been placed on site, and I am pleased to report that we have received all of our necessary building and occupancy permits, and we have also met our grant targets through CMHC. An area or an item of particular interest to the community is the arena in regards to the lack of heat. So just an update on that is a new motor is on order and will be installed by our staff, as well as 2 slide valves. The estimated time of arrival for that new motor and the installation of all of these things is 2 weeks. Hopefully it can come sooner. But we are also looking for, because the temperature has dropped outside, we are hopefully looking at some possible options to provide a little bit of heat in the arena to make it a little bit more comfortable for those users and those spectators. But once we do have a solution, we will communicate that to the public. PAR 999 is currently working closely with our planning and development department to begin the process of amending our statutory documents in order to accommodate their development. Those statutory amendments are going to come to council on an individual basis as we complete those items. The year end for 2022 is complete. It was significantly delayed this year, but I'm happy to report that is all done. Our equalized assessments have arrived as well. And I am pleased to report that we have seen some very modest assessment growth when it comes to residential. We have increased over 2022 1.1%. For non-residential assessments, we have grown by 1.7%. And machinery and equipment, we have also grown by 1.7%. And that equates to a little over $24 million in additional assessment over 2022. Through the mayor, that is all I have at this time, unless there's any other questions.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. Seeing none, that'll bring us to 8.3, which is now a discussion item, benchmark for paying union and salary employees 75th percentile. And I will hand the floor to Councillor Taylor.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. I thought it was appropriate to maybe have a discussion on this first. And I think what we're talking about is eventually having an informed policy discussion on the topic of compensation for employees. We've had a practice going on for 11 or 12 years, and I don't think that council's been involved in that discussion for that period of time. So I'd like to get your feelings on that, and the informed discussion would be at some point in the future where I think it would be appropriate that the administration bring us some of the options, some of the policy options, and some of the associated costs with those options. So we could see where we're at now and a couple of different options and have an informed discussion on where we want to go with this topic. That's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, any questions? Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. I do have a question. Sorry, not being super familiar with policies around wages and salaries. Is it common for municipalities to have a policy that governs wage comparators in terms of their staff and their hiring practices?
Through the mayor to members of council, not when it comes to hiring practices. That would be managed by administration, but it is common that council as a governance issue makes the decision on where they want to compensation for staff in relation to the market. But I do think that is it's a good discussion for council to have, and so I'll speak in support of that. There are other municipalities who govern this more informally, I would say, where they would just default to, say, market wages, and that would simply be managed by administration at that point. But no, I am in support to get some guidelines through policy when it comes to staff compensation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Taylor.
Did I muddle things up by saying hiring practices? No, I didn't say that, did I?
No.
Okay, I'm just curious. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. If there's a direction that's put forward, I would support having this conversation. I think we've heard about 75th percentile and we haven't found or heard of any documentation explicitly stating it. So let's have that conversation, figure out a time and date and land somewhere as a council. Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. I think it's better to bring this forward as a discussion item at a committee of the whole, and I certainly would support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. CEO Panasic, if there's an appetite to move this forward, what would be the ideal direction to do so?
Through the mayor to members of council. So we have placed a motion there as a recommended action for this item.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. Council, any appetite? Councillor Magoon.
I guess my question before that's made is just to the rest of council or perhaps to our CAO. That would give us the latitude to discuss the overall percentile and past hiring practice and where we want to go with this.
Through the mayor to council. Yes, that's correct.
I'm happy to make that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. So Councillor Magoon will make the motion that's recommended by administration. Councillor Taylor, can you see the motion?
No. Is it the one that was on the email?
We're good. Miss Davy Campbell will be putting it up momentarily for you. There we go.
I saw it for half a second and it looked good.
Okay.
I think it's
Council.
okay.
Council, we have a motion on the floor by Councillor Magoon. Any debate, questions, anything further for this? Before I call this to question, Councillor Taylor.
Associated costs would include, what was the question? Would include not just salary costs, but would include benefit costs too?
Administration.
Through the mayor to Councillor Taylor, yes, it would include all labor costs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, any further questions or debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council direct administration to bring back policy options for staff compensation with associated costs to a future committee of the whole meeting. Council, all those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Anything further for 8.3? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session with a short recess. Councillor Haas.
I'll make the motion to go into closed session.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, all those in favor? Thank you very much.